Guys, welcome to Unit 1. I just want to introduce to you the big ideas of the unit and tell you a little bit about what to expect for Unit 1. And then we'll kind of get started with the activities that we'll be doing during the unit. So Unit 1 is an introduction to literary techniques. There are four big ideas that we're going to explore during this unit. First, there's an essential question that I'll introduce to you, and that's going to guide us through the unit. Then you're also going to begin to understand what develops author style, what leads to an understanding of author purpose, and finally, how to use author style to help us recognize the meaning in complex text. Ultimately, the purpose of Unit 1 is to bridge that gap between ninth and 10th grade and also to kind of remind you of some big ideas that are important as we move forward that maybe got a little into your gray area after that quarantine time. Now, the big essential question that will guide discussions, that will guide my understanding of whether or not you're getting the skills. This question is going to help us know, do we have a good idea of these topics? How do writers employ literary techniques to create meaning? And this question probably is the crux of any literature and composition course that you will ever take. You'll be looking at techniques and you'll be discussing meaning. Now, literary techniques are like paintbrushes and paints that artists use, but for writers, the techniques, they are the things that the writers paint with. They help writers describe in words what really is very difficult to describe, especially emotions, the emotional responses to some of the things that happen in the human experience that really, really, really resonate similarly across cultures, time spans, religions, genders, etc. And literary techniques help these kind of abstract things like emotions and human responses become more concrete. And all of these choices that authors make through literary techniques lead to the meaning of their texts. Meaning is wrapped up in some type of catalyst. Are you fighting for or against something? Do you have a call to action? Meaning is what resonates with audiences, what moves audiences, what makes people sit down and read book after book after book because something's resonating with them. They're feeling connected, they're feeling some kind of response. Meaning can also be that reflective understanding that you gain by the end of reading a text. Now, author style to me is really a big, big, big umbrella term that literary techniques is related to. So I want to really sort of help you see that an author's style is created by the literary techniques the author chooses to use. So I've got three big concepts for you: diction, imagery, and language. And I'm arguing to you that these three big concepts, underneath them fall many, many, many of the literary techniques that authors have at their fingertips. And you guys are going to become writers, and you guys are going to be using very similar types of techniques to find your voice, to find your style as an author. Diction's wrapped up in words, word choices, the repetition of words. Imagery is all wrapped up in these sensory details that bring vivid ideas to our minds. And there's all kinds of things we can do to build imagery. And then language, like I said before, some things are just so difficult to put into words. So we have to have ways to bridge comparisons, bridge the idea from the abstract to the concrete. And so, figurative language, metaphors, similes, personification, all of these things help authors create meaning. So, let's look at that second part, this concept of meaning. And I'm going to probably more often than not use author purpose, and that is synonymous with meaning. So if I say, well, what is the author's purpose? I'm asking you to really reflect upon author meaning. And again, I'm trying to help you see that what this unit is doing is giving you some big idea umbrella terms that we'll begin to apply more specifically throughout the course. So, here's three things, three big ideas that I've gleaned to help you understand author purpose more. We're going to talk about tone. If you understand an author's tone, then you understand an author's purpose. We'll talk about symbolism. There are oftentimes in pieces of literature, whether it be fiction or nonfiction, symbols exist. Authors use things like setting, character, imagery, repetition, all of these things to create symbolism that moves you to consider meaning. And then finally, the concept of a theme is highly connected to what an author's purpose is. Authors are writing because they're exploring um, moral dilemmas, ethical considerations. They're exploring the human experience. And I compare writers to artists because I really do think that the idea of theme is the artistic comment on the human experience um, that sorry, theme is the artistic comment on the human experience that authors are setting out to make. People sit down to write because they have something to say. And these themes are the story values. We'll discuss themes, we'll read and consider themes. We're going to talk about things like universal themes. And we're really going to get at the nuance of meaning. We're going to learn how to look past the surface and really begin to grapple with the conversation that the author is moving us into. Now, every unit is also going to have a skills focus. We're going to be building some skills to make us better students, to make us ready to move out of high school into the larger world. And one big idea is you do need to understand what effect do these techniques, do these choices that authors make have on the meaning of complex texts? How do they build to that complexity? So, again, let's think about this concept of complexity. I've pulled it into three big ideas. Here's that word style again. Here's that word purpose again. And then I'm going to kind of separate the writer out because the writer's important. We have to know and understand something about the writer if we're going to trust the writer. So, an author's style, those choices the author makes, those techniques the author uses, will appeal to an audience often on an emotional level. The author's purpose has to be ultimately by the end, there has to be some kind of logic there for us to really take it in as an audience. And so, purpose is going to be built in such a way that we will arrive at an understanding in a logical way. And finally, getting back to the writer, kind of separately, the writer of the complex text. When we read complex texts, we need to know a little bit about this writer. We need to know about their background. Are they just Joe Schmo writing a blog? They're living out in the wilderness somewhere and they've written a blog for us to read? Or are they someone who has a PhD and they have spent their entire lives studying something and they have a foundation of knowledge that Joe Schmo in the wilderness may not? All of these things affect how readers take in things, they affect the complexity of the text. So the writer has to be someone we can trust. They have to have some sort of credibility. Now, in any unit, you're going to have lots of different types of formatives. In this unit, I'm going to teach you about a collaborative tool that allows you and others to interact with the text and have somewhat of a discussion as you're reading. And again, that term discussion is really important. You have to be able to have discussions with your peers. This is a collegiate expectation, this is a professional expectation. So, we're really going to be practicing how to enter discussions and how to think about text via that discussion. We'll post some videos on Flipgrids responding to different questions. And throughout the unit, I'll have you stop for a moment here and there and do a little bit of reflection on your takeaways from what we're learning. Now, during this unit, your big summatives, you'll have one full summative, but it's going to be dissected into two parts. So half of your summative will be based on a short 1 to 1.5 page writer's biography that you write for me, and you're going to be practicing using these literary techniques, making your own choices as an author. We'll also have a comprehension check of some sort. It won't be very long. There'll be some comprehension, reading comprehension, and then perhaps a constructed response where I ask you a question and then you have to write a short paragraph in response for me. Now, that's the end of the introduction. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Remember, you can interact with me on Remind. And you can send me questions via It's Learning as well. All right, I look forward to this unit. Thanks, guys.